It's very engaging, very trusting, valued us, and the performance and the people and the well-being, the stress levels on the rig were much better. So I've thought about this for many, many years. And I'm now involved in research, working a little bit with the Engagement Success Task Force, and I'll share some of that engagement with you today. So I'll take you through an introduction to what I think engagement is all about. This is a very powerful slide. On the left-hand side, if your people aren't engaged, this is the sort of performance you're going to get from them. As you can see, that's pretty poor. And this is why we're finding a lot of organizations are doing mental health first aid. There's so many mental health first aiders out there, a lot of people doing it. But what I'm saying to people is, if you actually move your culture, organizational culture, to the right-hand side of this slide, do you know what? People will be more positive, more focused, willing to collaborate, all this good stuff. We're proving this. So if you're doing mental health first aid, it means your people are stressed. Of course they are. But then you put them back into the same environment, the same culture, then perhaps it's not going to work. It's not going to be effective. So why don't we create this culture of well-being through engagement? And I'll share some results on this later. It's a fantastic transformation. The guys down the left-hand side of this chart take an average of 9-10 days off a year. Yeah, the guys at the top end, 1 or 2. They're happy to go to work. And we talk about work-life balance. If they're happy at work, do you know what? They'll probably be happy at home. So I'm trying to position this not as work, but it's about people. Imagine the left-hand side when people are taking some time off. Your HR department might have to get more resources. Yeah, if they're competent, you're lucky. But what's the impact on your, not just your safety, but your efficiency, your productivity, if they're not competent? If you can't get the resources, your guys have more to do in less time. Yeah, imagine the impact on your stress levels, your efficiency, your productivity, your safety. So this isn't just about safety or productivity or engagement. This is about your culture, your organizational culture, and the performance enhancement you can get if you have an engaged teams, engaged culture. Next one down. Next slide, sorry. So I position this as, and I brought a model out, or we brought a model out. This is down to leadership. It's about emotionally intelligent leaders, highly emotionally intelligent. We know a lot of leaders get promoted, managers, foremen, because they're good on the tools, they're good at engineering, whatever. If they haven't got this emotional intelligence, this empathy with people, then it's not going to work. I'm sure we've all seen these people. So to me, having an engaged, developing, designing one is all about getting your leadership consistent, authentic, and emotionally intelligent. So leadership is absolutely key to what we're talking about. And underpinned by this, if you have powerful leadership, then engagement is sustainable, but only to a certain level. If you don't care for your people, if they don't feel cared for, then that engagement isn't sustainable. Yeah, good leaders will have engagement, but you know what? It's absolutely about caring for your people. And this again is at all levels of the organization. I'm not talking about the CEO, I'm not talking about the senior leadership, the board. It's about every level of the organization. If you care for your team, if you're leading them with emotional intelligence, empathy, you will get an engagement out of them. And I think I'm not preaching to anything new here. This something's been around with myself from the 1980s. But when I go and talk to boards of directors, they go, "Ooh, okay, this is quite interesting. What's in it for me?" Well, I say, well, look at the top end. Look at that green part of this graph. Positive, more focused, willing to collaborate. We have a lot of stories around this where we're proving this actually works. These are some statistics, and there are so many statistics being bandied around all over the place. I go to so many conferences and see even contradictory statistics, but this has come out from the McLeod report some time ago. And this is pretty worrying, isn't it? 70% of employees don't trust engaged. Trust is sacrosanct. It's an intrinsic motivator. Only 30% of employees actively engaged. In the UK, for some reason, it's a little bit worse than the rest of Europe, although we are finding, we're doing research in China, in the Middle East, that it's about your people. If you care for your people, they will become engaged. It's not just about European people, it's about people in general. We do a lot of work in India, same thing. If you care for your people, you'll get this engagement. So this is a bit worrying, isn't it? Bad managers are the number one reason people leave their jobs. We'll turn that around to the positive, and good managers, the number one reason people stay in their jobs. So let's reframe to the positive and see where we can take this. Excuse me. So we mentioned about leadership being absolutely essential in developing this culture. So what are the key skills? Now there's so many, of course there are, and I can talk about this for days, but I'm going to give you a little challenge here and just ask all of you to think of the best leader from your past. What was the one trait that made them a good leader? And I would bet it's about trusting you, valuing you. It's about listening to you. It's about leading by example, speak about authentic, consistent, because that's what good leaders are. Nobody will think of a good leader from the past and say, do you know what? They're a narcissist. They're a bully. They pinched my ideas and told everybody theirs. And we see these sort of leaders. If any of you guys out there are those sort of leaders, then you're not a leader. Yeah, leaders, as we hear from all over the world, are people that you can trust. They lead by example. They care for you. They've got empathy. That's a really, really good leader. And we find that this is a very simple slide. Again, any leader at any level, a foreman, a manager, a leader, a CEO, we actually think we're good at communicating. And I look at people when I do conferences, and you can see people actually thinking. And I would challenge you all to think, are we actually really good at communicating? Maybe we're not. It's so important. Looking at neuroscience, our brain loves to predict. It loves patterns. It loves to predict what's going to happen. If it can't, because it's a bit confused, then you move down to the left-hand side of those stress levels of the engagement slide. So it's so important. I was presenting in Belfast a couple of weeks ago. My colleague, who I talk to almost every day, ended up at Belfast City Airport. I ended up at Belfast International Airport. Yeah, simple communications. And we got stressed. Well, we didn't get stressed, but we had to rearrange, and we had to go different ways to the conference. We think people have understood. Do they really understand when we tell them? Maybe they don't. Maybe we've got to clarify, ask them what they think. We're very good at talking to people, aren't we? But what about listening to people? You get so much from them. We think telling people is enough. Really? Not so sure about that. So communications as a leader is critical. And we can change things because it's not good. The amount of leaders we talk to, CEOs, etc., they're not actually very good at communicating. And I talk about well-being as well. And again, because our brain likes to predict patterns, it's so effective in emotional well-being. If there's stress, change going on, people want to know what's happening. They need to understand. And here's a really good example. I think Holly's just going to show this video. It's a great example. It's somebody saying, crack on, what you're going to do, see you later.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät, das Überlebensradar.
Mayday, Mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
Okay, I love that video. I showed that in Germany a couple of weeks ago at a conference, and it went down very well indeed. But it's a great example of just telling, crack on, you'll be fine. Will they? Do they understand? Not so sure. Here's another little example which I find quite cute, and it's speaks for itself, doesn't it? The rabbit thinks, well, this is no problem, but what did the tortoise really mean? Or the turtle, well, tortoise, I think. But it's a really good example. We've got to think about how we communicate with people. Yeah. It's even more engagement itself, your people, it's even more important that we're engaging with them in these times. Everybody's talking about VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. Again, I've seen some conferences where people are claiming that they're telling everybody that change is the most important thing and they know it's happening. Well, this guy's Heraclitus is a Greek philosopher from 500 BC, and he was talking about change is the only constant back then. I think the difference now is changing quicker. You've got to be more reactive, more agile. I appreciate that. But it's not brand new. We need to be thinking about how we can improve, how we can look at different ways of running the business. Because if you teach everybody to speak German, and then all of a sudden people start speaking French, you're in trouble, aren't you? So we do need to recognise that our people are a huge asset, especially if they can collaborate and innovate, if they're engaged, if they feel they could, if they feel valued. So a lot of people talk about valuing their people, but do they really? The amount of companies we talk to, probably 1 or 2 in 10 are doing it, another 1 or 2 are thinking about it, and the others are just cracking on, speaking German, waiting for someone to speak French, and it's too late. So your people are valuable, as we know. So in terms of leading in this volatile world, why is it so important? And to me, this is something I talk about in visible leadership. People are getting it, they understand it. If you look at the picture on the slide to the right, imagine they're all leaders. Yeah, they're all connected, they're all communicating, and they might have leadership on their forehead. They might have done a level 7 CMI, they might have done an MBA, and they've got a certificate. To me, I say, so what? Look at the space in between those people. There's a lot of space. That's what they leak to their people. People aren't stupid. They can tell if somebody's a leader or not. You don't have to have a certificate. So your invisible leadership is what real leadership is. It's quite counterintuitive. You can't see it. It's so much more powerful than visible leadership because it's your real leadership. So you've got to be leading consistently, authentically, else people will realize that. Then you lose them. They're going to slip down that left-hand side of the engagement piece. Distributed authority. A lot of people talk about empowering people. And if you imagine that the guy on the left-hand side of the picture, bottom left, he's the CEO, the next level's the senior management, and then the managers at the front line. Well, yes, we absolutely have to empower the front line. They're the guys doing the job. Yeah? Then you're going to get knowledge-based decisions based on information. They know what's going on, not instruction. And so many companies keep telling people what to do. We know best. No, you don't. The front line, I know best. They can make knowledge decisions. But when people talk about distributed authority or empowering, they have to understand that not everybody wants to be empowered. It's not a tick box exercise. Some people will, some people won't. Some people want a bit of empowerment. Some people will grow into it. So again, it's understanding your people. We can't just go and tick boxes so hard, empowerment, look at me, aren't we great? No, you're not. It's understanding your people. Fluid intelligence is an interesting one. You can actually measure leaders' fluid intelligence. That's how quickly they can make decision things. But again, if you understand who's in your team, when you reach complex decisions to make complex issues, you can get the right people into the team to solve those problems. You can't just go with the same people all the time, solving different problems. You have to understand in your team who can actually support you, who's the best to make these decisions to actually solve these complex problems. So fluid intelligence is really important in this. And again, you have to know your team, you have to know your people to know their skills. And collaboration is another one. Yeah, all these people collaborating, that's great. And diverse groups are even better. Again, it's proven by so many researchers at creating new ideas. Yeah, companies need mavericks. I love mavericks. You need them. You need them to throw new ideas in there. Else you'll be hurtling towards a bland conformatism, as I say. So again, going back to the picture of the leadership, it's very powerful. It's about consistent, authentic leadership. So important. And if you lose any of these people, again, imagine the bottom left, the CEO, next level's the senior managers, next level the managers. If they don't believe in your leadership, you're going to lose them. They won't then go out to their people and talk about you and talk about the story and talk about the strategy, the vision. It's about being consistent and authentic so people believe in you and trust you. And we see, again, so many managers, senior managers, who just can't do that. So can anybody be a leader? A lot of people say, yes, they can. And I think the answer is if they want to be, they can, because it's not about your characters, it's about your behaviors. And here's some examples, some older examples, because this is not new. These guys are going back 20, 30 years. And Lafley, diverse, open, curious, courageous, collaborative culture. That's why it worked. Kimberly Clark, Darwin Smith, he was known as the CEO because nobody ever saw him. He was never on television, never in the papers. But magnanimity, humility, how many leaders do you see that can actually practice that? They're really powerful virtues. And then there's, Beardo. Like him or love him, he's certainly a leader. He's certainly a different character to the others. So it's not about your characters, it's about your behaviors. So people, if they want to be, can be leaders at all levels of the organization. So in terms of the research we've done and we're sharing with people, we go to Engage for Success. It was set up, I think, back in 2010. The government took it on in 2014. The McLeod report came out in 2014, around about then. And I think it's very powerful from the information that we have, the people we're working with. It's a very powerful look at engagement. A lot of companies out there saying there's 10, 12 pillars. That's too many. These 4 pillars are powerful and they all relate back to leadership. The first of the pillars is strategic narrative. And again, I use the same picture because I think it's really powerful. But again, these guys over here at the front line, if you've got a vision for your organization, then if those people on the front line don't feel a part of that vision, if they don't feel valued, if they don't feel they can contribute to your vision, they're not part of the story, that vision becomes a mirage. I was with a rail company, a board of directors of a rail company. I told them their vision was a mirage. And after a few minutes of picking themselves up off the floor, we started to discuss why. Because they didn't care about the front line. They thought they did, but their actions showed they didn't to the front line. And they spent a lot of money on the front line and said, isn't that fantastic? Let's do an engagement survey quickly. So that would be good. The front line came back and said, you don't care about us. The board was saying, well, hold on, we spent millions of pounds. How can that be? Because they hadn't engaged with the front line. They hadn't asked them. They imposed something on them and thought that would be good. So if your front line or any of your people don't feel part of your story, your vision, that vision is going to be a mirage. They've got to feel valued, a valued part of that journey. And I talk about organizations being built on relationships, not data. How many people collect data? Why do they collect data? Yeah, it's about people. And people ask me, how can you tell an engaged company? But I actually say, well, you can feel it, you can sense it. And people are half an inch taller. You think about it. If you value somebody's opinion, if you ask them something as opposed to telling them something, they feel, oh, thank you. And they'll be half an inch taller, they'll be a bit more upright. Then they'll go and tell their colleagues, do you know what? These guys care about us. And that's, as an organization, what we're passionate about. It's getting that caring into the whole of the organizational culture. And to me, it's understanding what's in it for people. WIIFM, I say, is the biggest radio station in the world. We all listen to it, and it means what's in it for me. If there's nothing in it for me, am I bothered? So important to understand. Strategic narrative, having that story, telling people the story. If it changes, just keep them informed. They can be part of your vision. The second of the pillars, excuse me, engaging managers. Yeah. Again, I say this is about a 3-legged dog. I put a 3-legged dog picture up in board meetings or conferences. And if you don't know in your team, because most teams are 8, 10, 12 people, we do know companies with 40, 50 in a team, but we're talking to them about other opportunities. But if you don't know in your team who's got a 3-legged dog, then you're not really engaging with them. And in terms of safety, we do a lot of safety walkabouts, don't we? And this, that, and the other. And we've seen directors go out onto the front line and they'll keep their heads down and tick the box they've done a walk. There's a guy with a Man United t-shirt on. Will he go and talk to him about Man United? Probably not. But if he knows in his team has got a 3-legged dog and he goes out to talk about the guy's 3-legged dog, the guy will be much more engaged with the conversation and you'll glean much more out of that person about safety, well-being, risks by caring about him. genuinely, authentically caring. Yeah. So it's about engaging with the people, understanding what drives them, what's in it for them, how many kids have they got. It's not hard to do, but people don't do it. Third one is employee voice. Ability to speak out. And a lot of people, they collect near misses and this, that, and the other, and so what? If they don't do something about it, then you'll get learned helplessness. People won't do it again. Nothing's happened. What's the point? And you become it's a dangerous place to be if people aren't reporting near misses or stress factors or stressors. You've got to understand that these people are doing it for the right reason. And even if you can't do something about it, at least tell them, at least have that narrative with them that you care about what they're saying. You will then start to learn as an organization. I was with the board of directors some time ago of a logistics company who said that we're going to set up this near miss reporting. And I said, that's fantastic. Why are you doing that? And they said, well, so we can understand what a near miss is. And I said, well, why don't you just find out why as well at the same time? If you find out why, perhaps you can learn. Oh, okay, that was a good idea. I then asked 6 people what a near miss was, 6 directors of a company, and they all had a different response. So how on earth could their front line and everybody else in the organization know what a near miss was? And they moved that from near misses to safety concerns, which was fantastic because it's a bit of an emotive thing. If I'm concerned about something, it's about me. So they got so much more feedback from their employees, the remote employees, the lone workers, and they had to change their systems to adapt the amount of information coming through. But they started to learn, and they started to share that learning. So they changed from a reactive company to proactive, and the transformation was fantastic. And interestingly enough, that organization's moved on even further, and they just talk about concerns now. So anybody's concerned about anything in the organization, let's talk about it. You've got a voice. It's a very, very good place to be. The 4th pillar is authenticity, integrity. Absolutely vital in all leaders. It's about your invisible leadership again, isn't it? This is actually one of our clients up in the Glasgow shipyards. And this guy went out, we all know who he is, without a hat on. That set their culture back 18 months. Yeah, where's the authenticity? Where's we believe in what we say? They didn't. This guy, Gordon Brown, then went to Toyota, who we're working with, and Toyota said, you're not coming in. They gave him a cup of tea in the canteen and sent him home. That is true living your values. That sends a message to the workforce that you care. Yeah, you're consistent, you're authentic. That builds trust. So integrity is absolutely vital. Saying one thing, doing another is absolutely not. It's about building trust. It's about your invisible leadership. So I hope this is making sense. So they're the 4 pillars of engagement. So I talk about the impact on business performance and risk. How could that be when we just talk about engagement? I'm going to run through a few slides here that will show exactly what I mean. So back to the slide. On the left-hand side, distracted, anxious, think less clearly, all these negative feelings, which is about stress. Yeah. So where do you think your safety might be better? Well, absolutely more with engaged people, I would surmise. It's just about safety. What about productivity? Sorry about the slide. It doesn't quite fit. But absolutely, productivity would be better up there. People are focused, more willing to get involved, collaborative. This is where you get discretionary effort with your engaged teams. What about quality? So this is not just about safety or well-being or siloed, IT, HR. This is about your culture. Changing to an engaged culture will start to drive your performance. What about resilience? Organizational and individual resilience. Yeah, who'd want to work for a company who's down the left-hand side there? You're going home stressed. You're going to talk about that company in the pub. It's not going to be a place to go and work. So here's your HR people coming in. Building resilience in your people and your organization is absolutely essential. And you're not going to do it unless your people are engaged. What about retention recruitment? If there's any HR people on, I know for a fact that, again, the latest statistics said about 76% of HR people were worried about retention recruitment. Who's going to work for a company down the left-hand side? Yeah, just think about that. We want to be an engaged environment, especially the new people, youngsters coming through. They don't want to work in a place like this. They want to work in an engaged, thriving, collaborative environment. It's what they do on social media. Collaboration is key to them, and trust, of course. And what about your brand? As we've said before, people will understand, they'll hear about you as an organization, and that will impact on your brand. Of course, corporate social responsibility. We're doing some research with CIPD on the impact of engaged organizations on corporate social responsibility. We've interviewed tens of thousands of people, and if they feel engaged, their quality of working life is so much better, and they have time to go out into the community at weekends or the evenings, put some time aside. If they slide down the left-hand side of this, where they're more stressed, they just haven't got the wherewithal, they haven't got the resource, they haven't got the time to do it. So it has a massive impact on corporate social responsibility, quality of working life. And to me, it's about your risk. That's a risk to the organization. So that's how I tie an engagement to, excuse me, performance and risk, absolutely. Now, I mentioned safety and well-being, and so many people look at this in isolation. We've been talking about engagement and proactive, integrated approach for about 5 or 6 years. You go to conferences now, it's all about engagement or well-being. It's about an integrated approach. But the power of engagement in terms of your safety, this is one of our safety models. It's based on the Parker Hudson, but we've changed it slightly. I hope you can see that. But what happens here is so many people become system obsessed. You've got to be compliant. This is broad compliance. Most of the organizations are here, they have to be, but they become system obsessed. And most companies we talk to say, do you know what? We do. Something goes wrong, oh, we better have another policy, another procedure. And you're not going to get beyond the safety culture by becoming system obsessed. You've got to look at it differently. That's about your people, human focus. And this is about engaging. So getting safety cultures to the next level is about engaging with your people. Again, we've got case studies worldwide that absolutely prove you reach your safety wave here, your plateau, and you can't get any further until you start engaging with your people. And the same is happening in well-being. This is a similar model we have just brought out on well-being. And what we're finding with well-being is people are a little bit further back. A lot of people doing ad hoc, let's have a cycle today, work, cycle to work day, sorry. And then they do more of those. They perhaps have apples at the end of the table every day. But to me, it's not about that. It's just as important to have a Friday than it is to have fruit, because it shows you care about the people that want to fry it Friday. You're not enforcing fruit on them, you care about them. It's not about yoga and yogurts. It's not about bikes and bananas. Good though they are, it's about creating that environment of well-being. Yeah, and this is where, again, you can become compliance obsessed. HSE have got their new stress policies come out. But getting to the next level is about engaging with your people again. It's about your engagement. You can do all the compliance you want. You're not going to get any further. Your well-being culture is not going to get any further without engaging with the people, as we've seen in previous slides. Interesting enough for us, we've just found a tool that we can actually look at a heat map of stressors, because to us, it's not about work-related stress. And the HSE, we're discussing with them about this. It's about work-related stressors. Yeah, it's what's stressing those people. And you imagine people, we're not stressed because we're at work, we're stressed because we're people. If you've got a dog, a car, a cat, you go on holidays, you could have stress. But at work, it's not about identifying stress, it's about identifying stressors that are causing people stress. That's the important thing. And this is one of the models that we've just started using, one of the tools. We actually pinpoint where the stress, the heat maps are. So you can actually go and understand why people are being stressed. Let's identify the stressors and do something about them. Let's not just run a bananas and bike initiative or yoga and yogurt. Let's go and find out where these stressors are and remove them. Or you can even move the people to different roles. If some people are stressed by a role, move them to another role. Not everybody will be stressed by that stressor. So there's a big difference between stress and stressors. I hope that makes sense. And this is the model we brought out. It's been adopted by a rail company already. A very simple model that leadership, as a summary really, has an impact on engagement, but it's actually underpinned by a well-being, caring for your people. And Gallup have come up with this: business leaders worldwide must raise the bar on employee engagement. Increasing engagement is vital to achieving sustainable growth. That's just what we've been talking about for companies, communities, and countries. Now, I think Gallup missed the trick here. It's about people as well. They haven't got the people in there, but it's companies, communities, and countries. Engagement is very powerful stuff. A lot of people are understanding this now. So the last few slides, just a bit more evidence, really. The CIPD, engage people, three times more likely to have key positive emotions work. What a great place to be if people are optimistic, calm, relaxed. It's supposed to stress out. It's about building that engagement through engaged teams, through those consistent leadership, emotionally intelligent leadership. Another one from Gallup. It's not about safety, it's not about well-being, it's not about HR, it's about an integrated approach. Fewer unhealthy days, less likely to be diagnosed with a new disease in the next year, less likely to be diagnosed with anxiety and depression. That means if we create this culture of engagement, of well-being, you won't need your mental health first aiders all over the place. You can put them back into an environment where this will be happening, less likely to be diagnosed with anxiety and depression. This is the power of engaged organizations. And we do find them. It's not easy. There's no silver bullet here. This is about understanding an integrated approach. It's got to include everybody. It's got to include leadership that's consistent, authentic, and emotionally intelligent. They're the sort of leaders you need. That could be a shift change for a lot of companies who've promoted people on the tools that are very good at what they do on the tools, but haven't got that empathy. So it needs thinking about. There's no single silver bullet for this. So in summary, this is the key, I think. An integrated approach to leadership, well-being, and engagement, which addresses both individual and organizational issues, builds resilient people in resilient organizations, better ready to adapt to any change. And change is what it's all about at the moment, isn't it? And these are the key sort of outcomes you will get from an engaged organization. So I hope that makes sense. Now, I could talk for hours on engagement and leadership, but that gives you an overview of where I think we should be looking. An integrated approach based on leadership that's consistent, authentic, and emotionally intelligent. So thank you very much for staying with us for 35 minutes, I think it is. So I think we've got about 10 minutes questions. So anything you need to know, please ask or email through Holly, and I'll come back to you anytime you like. So thank you very much. I don't know if there are any questions, or Holly, can you hear me?
Hi, Kevin. Yes, I think we've just got a few questions coming through now.
Oh, I can use it. That's good.
You can see people typing.
I don't need to type my answers, do I? I can just talk.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you, Judith.
Okay, those questions, I think they're coming through. We'll wait another couple of minutes, and then if not, I can answer, pass on any questions that come after the presentation.
I hope you're all thinking, well, that was interesting, but I haven't a clue what it was on about. I'll go and reflect and then come back with questions. I'm very happy to do that. It's a very quiet bunch.
Okay, Emma's asked if the recording's being sent out. So Emma, you'll be sent a link to the recording later on today. Okay. We've got another couple of questions now. Kevin, which I think you should be able to read.
Yeah, Michelle, great question. I don't think they want to, perhaps. There's a lot of leaders out there that have been there for years and years. They come from the old school, and it's not in their interest to change. They're very happy doing what they're doing. It's getting their colleagues that do want to look at this change to actually manage them. And high-performing organisations, they manage performance, good and bad, but they manage it quickly. And we've seen this at board level. You can tell the people that don't want to change, that are very happy, without knocking the NHS. There's a lot of leaders in the NHS that are very happy doing what they're doing. So change is a bit of a challenge for them. And we appreciate that. But it's getting those people and getting them to understand what's in it for them. And I think that's the important thing. Shirley, thank you so much in terms of health and safety. Yes, there is. We've got a lot of case studies. And again, it's back to what's in it for them as a manager, the impact, the positive impacts they can have on people and themselves. And when you're talking about productivity will go up, quality will go up, it's back to the what's in it for me as a manager. So what's in it for me as a CEO is important, as a board of directors. So I present differently to different people, of course, different groups, but it's very much engaging with them. It's about collaboration and it's about ownership. So in terms of the middle manager, which we know are always squeezed, or the supervisors, it's understanding or getting the senior managers to understand they're sending the message to these people, but do they really believe it? Do they trust those managers? So it's the poor people in the middle getting squeezed, and it's back to your culture. They've got to see the senior managers leading by example. They've got to see they mean it. Then they can start to manage effectively. Yeah, really, really difficult to do with the wrong people in place. Judith, more presentations. I've done 4 in the last 2 weeks in British Safety Council in Germany, in Edinburgh, and Sweden. So yes, I do have a lot of information on emotional intelligence that I'm very happy to share with. If you come through, Holly, from my email address, I'll get something back to you. David, thank you very much. That's interesting, isn't it? Near misses to concerns is working because it's emotional again. I believe it's about them. What's in it for me? Oh, I can understand this, and I think it's a massive difference. And it's about not constraining people to saying that what's a near miss, that is it. Okay, well that wasn't really a near miss. It's that there's no decision to be made if it's a concern. It's about emotion. I think that's very powerful. So yeah, thank you for that. Thanks for backing that up. And well done for doing it.
Yeah, I think that's all of the questions, Kevin.
As I say, any more, if you want to reflect on this and have a think about it and come back to us, very, very happy to talk to you anytime. Come and share a coffee, let you know when the next presentations are. Very happy to do that and share some of this information with you in more depth. So just let us know.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks, Alexander, and everybody else. Thanks for your time.